Hi Siri, I'm looking for a new podcast, one that preferably is hosted by a UF Hall of Famer, one that airs every weekday that would bring me everything I need to know about the Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions. Siri, is there such a show?
Have you heard of PodUp with Matthews in the morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or any podcast platform?
Oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? UF Hall of Famer Shane Matthews has a show every weekday. I'm gonna go check it out tomorrow. Thanks, Siri.
Good morning. It's a live edition, a hump day edition. It's Wednesday. It's PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Got a good show lined up today. We'll have JC in a minute. We'll have Will Miles from Read and Reaction talk about his Gator magazine that he has out. I think he was on Feinbaum yesterday, by the way. If you missed it yesterday, just a heartbreaking loss for the Lady Gators in extra innings. Had opportunities to beat the dynasty, but give Oklahoma credit, man. Their lineup, their players, they're the best in the business. And tremendous year for Tim Walton and his girls. They'll continue to be in Oklahoma City in the future. Let's go to the Titan More Highline, courtesy of Comfort Temple. We are joined by JC. Good morning, JC. What's happening?
Well, QB, when I was watching that game, I kept saying to myself, damn, this is awesome. They're really, facing the challenge. They're in Oklahoma's face, and it's great, but they had to keep scoring. When you play a team like Oklahoma, it's almost like you have to keep scoring and scoring. And unfortunately, of the 4 hits, 3 home runs of those 4 hits, none of those home runs were of the 3-run variety, So,
right.
Listen, man, those girls have everything to be proud of. It's a young team. I know we're losing Skylar Wallace, but the point is that they've got a pitcher. This girl's got the heart of a lion, and Keegan Rothrock threw more innings, I think, in the last couple of days than just about anybody ever has for Florida. And to face that lineup 2 days in a row has to wear on you, QB, because of just how devastating those girls are with Oklahoma. Every single person in that lineup can hit it to the moon. And it's hard to face that. I mean, it's just tough. And when they see Keegan for the second straight day, they're going to be better than maybe they were the first day. And they certainly were tough. But the Gators have everything to hold their heads high about. And they were right there ready to play for a championship. And I think you're going to see that happen as the years go by. Now Oklahoma's going to get to play in the SEC. So,
yeah, it's it's a couple plays here or there. In the 6th inning, we had their 9th place hitter, like an 0-2 count, and she fouled off a ball. Then she pulls one down the line for a double, and they end up tying up. And then Skylar has first and third for us in the top of the 7th, and rolls one over to the first baseman. So, look, as you said, Oklahoma is what Oklahoma is, and you just hold your breath every time one of their damn girls comes to bat. I swear, because the girl that hit the home run, that was a terrible pitch to swing at.
I know.
She just flicked her bat, and it gets out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
But it was a great year. And
it was.
They'll be back. I mean, it's not like that they weren't. I mean, I guess you could say they weren't expected to go. I expect softball to go to the World Series every year. So
12 times. I mean, they've been 12 times, QB, and Oklahoma's won this thing 3 times now. And
no, 3 in a row. They've won 8 times.
I'm sorry, they have, correct, 3 in a row, and they're looking to go 4 in a row. They'll be fought. I mean, Texas is going to give them all they want, but listen, I think the Gators. Just the experience alone on this trip is going to do a lot of great things. And Tim's going to get some players here, and
he's got a tremendous recruiting class coming in. You technically lose 2 starters, but you really only lose 1. Katie Kistler played really well down the stretch, right fielder. He kind of interchanged that position all year long. Skylar Wallace is the best player, in my opinion, to ever put a Gator uniform on. She will be missed.
Yes.
Everybody else comes back.
Yeah.
If you can keep them and not go, they don't go to the transfer portal.
Well, if you heard Skylar Wallace after the game, she couldn't have spoken more highly of the school, of the coaching staff, of her experience at the university. And she is a great Gator, right? I mean, she's going to go down as one of the great Gators. So I think if she's got anything to do with it, she's going to tell her teammates, win a championship here at Florida.
Yeah, it's a tremendous year. Some other news and notes. Those brilliant folks over at the Florida High School Athletic Association decided to pass NIL is now in high school athletics here in the
Oh
state of
my God.
Florida. I
Oh
don't give
my
a damn
God.
what the other states are doing. This is a disaster for any coach, for
Ugh.
players. I'm telling you, people can sit here and throw all the comments you want at me about the kids deserve to be paid. The hell they
No,
don't.
they do not. No, let the parents give them an allowance. That's where they should
Yeah.
get paid. They should get
I
paid at
mean,
home for
so
raking the yard. They should
JC,
get.
JC Cornerstone Financial Group's not going to pay players to go play at Buchholz.
There's a better chance of me buying a Maserati. That is not happening. The bottom line is, look, mom and dad can pay the kids to rake the yard and to bag the leaves and to sweep out the garage. Okay, that's where they should get paid. Even if they, and sometimes they don't even get paid for that. So I think it's an asinine situation. They're just making a difficult situation worse, I think, for the people in charge. And I don't think the other states in America are going to adopt this policy, although it wouldn't surprise me if some do. And I just don't know why we have to include high school kids now on the payroll. It's asinine.
I mean, look, what happened? What happened to
What happened?
what happened to like just the whole transfer portal in high school was a disaster the last couple of years,
Yeah.
and then now this. What happened to growing up, playing ball, regardless of the sport, with your buddies for the love of the game and the love of your damn school?
Mm-hmm.
So when you come back to your high school reunions, you can enjoy it. That is gone.
Yeah.
I talked to so many via text, so many high school coaches last night. Man, I'm telling you.
They're losing their minds. I'll tell you this.
I have a feeling some of these dudes that are a little older they're just gonna say to hell with it. I'm done with it.
Well, this thing right here has made the world a lot smaller, QB. And when I was in high school, when you were in high school, we didn't hardly even know some of the kids at our crosstown rival GHS. We didn't even know them unless we were playing against them on the field of play. We didn't have this connectivity and this communication. And I think it's just adding the fuel to the fire for getting kids more included on whatever it is that high schools create. And I didn't know they create a lot of money either. And somehow now we're going to have boosters come in and just throw checks at my 16-year-old. Hey, little Shane, come on over in your car that dad bought you and come pick up this check for $10,000. I mean, think about that. Does that make any sense at all? Hey, Robbie, tell your friend I got a check for him. It's in. Give him this envelope.
Alan says, what image and likeness are they selling at high school? So basically, what you can do now, JC is a financial planner at Cornerstone Financial Group. If JC wants to do a commercial, or if JC just wants to write a check for player X to endorse his product, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
Are you gonna buy something that a 15-year-old softball player tries to sell you?
Yeah, like some, like some cups,
stand,
like cups and, the magazines and, they sell the the little discount gift cards and all this. I mean, it's a disaster. I don't know how else to say it. Daryl says on the Titan More text line, high school sports has gone to a hell in a handbasket with NIL being approved by the FBA.
Your kid is grown. Our kids are grown, QB.
Thank God.
This is not our problem. I could not imagine little Sam saying, "Hey, Dad, I made more money than you did this week." I'm not having that.
This is from 904. He says, last night proved that Buddy was right. An elite team doesn't fold like that. Maybe next year.
Oh, who said that?
Whatever. 904. He's clueless because
oh
they're as elite as there gets.
904, please. I think he's pulling your leg right there, QB.
Yeah, maybe he is.
Look, man, I texted Tim last night and said, "Hey, man, great effort from the ladies. You'll be back." And I agree. I believe that. I think.
Yeah, they go back all the time.
Yeah.
Tony says more high school coaches are going to leave Florida. Well, I believe they passed it in Georgia. I think there's only like 3 or 4 states that don't do it. But if you're not getting paid very well here and you have to put up with it, there's no reason to hang around. So Anyway,
Oh,
Silverback
so
Concrete
this is
builds firm
common in
foundations
America?
for generations.
I didn't know
You
that.
stand on it, we stand by it. Do what?
I did not know this was a common thing in America that the high schools are not getting
Yeah,
paid.
there's a lot of other states that are doing it.
Huh. Well, then I guess that's the way it works.
But I mean, it's comical, absolutely comical.
Yeah, I guess the kids like it though.
But I mean,
They're loving it.
honestly, here's what I have to say. Whoever pays any player, they need to check themselves out.
No. There are so many better things I can do with my discretionary dollars than pay some kid to play high school sports. I can't imagine writing a check to some 17 or 16-year-old kid to go perform on the diamond. I could not even, that doesn't even come into my realm of thinking. It just
or if you're if you have a barbecue place in town, do you let the kid do a commercial for you and you say, hey, you can eat here for free all year?
Right.
I don't know.
Well,
it's
maybe in some
it's
hey,
stupid.
listen, maybe in some of these small communities like Cordele, Georgia, and wherever, where the high school quarterback that we see on Friday night is the star of town. He's the belle of the ball everywhere he goes in that town. And if I got him on a local television spot and he wanted to espouse my car dealership or restaurant, maybe that would help me. But it's, man.
But here's the thing. Here's what's crazy. You're using commercials here. Gainesville's not a huge town, but I mean, it's bigger than some of these little Madison, Floridas and places. But you could have a commercial of some high school athlete, as you said, doing it down there at Gainesville Forward. People are gonna be like, who is that guy?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. I don't know who that kid is.
Yeah. All right. Chris from Cottondale on the Titan MR text line says, I want to commend JC on not playing a part in this NIL crap with Cornerstone Financial. I always knew we would end up seeing things through the same set of eyes. There's hope for him yet.
Look, I told you 2 weeks ago, Chris really's grown on me lately, especially what he said about Saban dumping me on the Gator Nation now that he quit. And I love that. That made me laugh for about an hour. So I'm back on the Chris bandwagon now. I like Chris. I do. Listen, the thing is that you really have to be careful with where you spend your discretionary dollars if you're budgeting things. Some people don't even have budgets. They just throw money around. And I just can't see this being something that really takes off and runs. I just can't. Now, the guys who are getting paid, who do deserve to get paid, who have worked all their lives to get paid, like the New York Yankees right now, they have a pitcher named Luis Gil who had Tommy John surgery. He is back. 6 innings, 1 hit pitch, a ball last night against the Minnesota Twins. The Yankees will end up playing the Phillies if they stay healthy in the World Series, and it'll be the most watched World Series we've had in the last 20 years because of the population center in the Northeast, even though many of those folks are migrating to the Southeast. But the Phillies and Yankees right now, and the Orioles, my God, look at the Orioles. They are playing great baseball. And tonight, if you're looking at baseball, Paul Skeens for the Pirates pitches against the LA Dodgers in Pittsburgh. The Pirates beat the Dodgers last night. They are 4 games under 500, but the fans are into it. And Paul Skeens is a big hit in Pittsburgh. He is the first draft pick from Louisiana State that strikes everybody out. So he's pitching tonight. There's your baseball wrap up for tonight.
Comfort Temp Heating and Air is looking for enthusiastic, motivated comfort specialists to join their team. $1,000 sign-on bonus after 90 days. Awesome benefits and the opportunity to grow with a winning team. Apply today at comforttemp.com. Comfort Temp Heating and Air. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. Maybe some of those high school kids should go work for Comfort Temp.
Well, for a high school kid to end up playing for the St. Louis Cardinals or the Texas Rangers, it's going to take more than a big fat bank account. He's going to have to work at his game and be a special player. And it's how many players play in the majors? Maybe 550 or 60, 600 maybe.
And majority of them are from the Dominican.
Yeah, and many of them come from foreign countries. QB, so what do you think? Do you like, we've got the Gators getting ready to go to Clemson. This is kind of like a thing for O'Sullivan, who came from Clemson. I think he coached 9 years at Clemson before he came to Florida years and years and years ago. And I tell you, man, a lot of I think 6 of the top 8 seeds advanced, and here's Florida playing Clemson. I really think there's a chance they can win this.
Oh, there's a chance.
Absolutely.
JC, that's why you play the game.
There's
why
a
you
chance.
play the game.
They took it to Oklahoma State, and I think something has clicked, and hopefully we'll see that continue. I guess the game's on Saturday at 2:00 on ESPN.
Yeah, that's Saturday, Sunday, Monday series.
Okay. We'll talk about that on Friday for sure. But do you think Texas has a chance to beat Oklahoma in the softball, or do you think it's just another one for Oklahoma?
Well, the only reason that Texas was the one seed is because they won 2 out of 3 against Oklahoma in one of the late series. I've watched them both a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how Texas can beat OU. I really don't.
I don't either. Maybe, this is kind of what Oklahoma needed, was to be tested by a team like Florida, to put them behind, see if they could come back, and they did. But look, the Gators were right there. That inning, the 6th inning you talk about, where they had 2 runners on with 1 out, and they had the best hitters coming up. Reagan was up and Schuyler was up, and they just couldn't push across an insurance run there. And I had a bad feeling going into the bottom half of that inning. So
tropical smoothie. Live a healthier lifestyle with our bold, flavorful smoothies and our amazing food. Tropical smoothie. When you eat better, you feel better. We got JC on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Tent. We'll have Will Miles for Read and Reaction, talking about his Gator magazine. He was on Feinbaum yesterday, so get your questions ready for Will. It's like a 70-page magazine on the mighty Gators.
70 pages. Jeez.
That's a lot. It's not like, Lindy's and all that's about 70 pages, I think, but you got you got every team there is. You got a little section for the cheerleaders. You got all these stats.
Yeah.
But could you imagine doing a 70-page magazine on the mighty Gators?
Whew. Well, Buddy's got some competition. Buddy, get that Gator bait going, baby.
I don't think Gatorade has a magazine, JC, anymore.
Gator bait. Buddy's
this is a text from 904. So they had a chance to apply pressure in the 7th and 8th and didn't come through. Elite teams rise to the occasion.
Look.
That's right. Okay, enough of that.
The thing is that you just kind of had that feeling that the Gators just had to keep scoring to win this game. And look, their pitcher is really good. I mean, she's been great, but Florida hit her. But they only got 4 hits, and that was
Well, I mean, they faced a very good pitcher as well. Alan in Atlanta on the Titan More text, and I says, guys, my understanding is that the Gator Collective paid DJ Lagway last year while he was in high school. I think it was probably not the Gator Collective. It was the other Florida Victorious. I'm certainly not going to contribute to it, but this ain't going away. Well, that's different.
Well,
that was, there are a lot of players, I believe, and I'm not 100% sure about this, that once they commit or whatever, they're getting paid by the collectives, even though I don't know how that works. So that doesn't have anything to do with car dealer or restaurant X saying, hey, let's pay you instead of going to the high school you're supposed to be at. We're going to pay you to come play tailback over here and let you do a commercial. That's the problem.
Yep, that is the problem, and that's wrong. But QB, this thing with the $20 million that everybody's now supposed to pay the athletes. In a way, we talk about how the smaller schools could be going away because of the budgetary concerns and so forth and so forth. The thing is that difficult decisions will have to be made, and some of that $20 million can be going to some of those non-revenue sports, while NIL covers the football issues. The problem is though, if you have a deficit problem, you also have a spending problem. So maybe the lacrosse team, they don't lose their program, but maybe they don't go on that tournament trip to Maryland or something. Or maybe the Maui Invitational, instead of sending the basketball team to Hawaii for a week.
Well, usually, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Maui pays for all.
They pay to go, but a lot of these things that cost a lot of money can be taken out of the system and not have to sacrifice.
Well, but here's the problem, JC. Even Mike Morgan mentioned this the other day.
Yeah.
That South Carolina, for example, women's basketball, your national champs, they lost like $3 or $4 million. I mean, what are you going to do? Not play your play your schedule?
Well, again, decisions that people may not like may have to be made, but it's better than canceling or doing away with a certain program, specifically the women's programs with Title IX that don't have much revenue. And I think spending is where you have to address the spending issues that these departments. I mean, what did Florida have in revenue? $190 million. Alabama had $200 million in revenue. If you're telling me you can't run an athletic department, even though 10% of that has to go to the athletes in some form or fashion, then I think you got a spending problem. And I think there's some things you can do without having to cancel programs or sports. The lacrosse. I mean, I don't want to see the lacrosse team and the softball team and these other teams go away. That's not good for the school. The school is vibrant when there are great sporting programs that are taking place on campus. You want to go to a campus where they have multiple sporting programs, where they have softball, where they have track, where they have lacrosse, where they have a golf, where they have all these things. You want to go to those schools. You don't want to go to a school that's cutting back those programs. But what you can do within those programs is maybe make some cuts to try to preserve so that your budget and that your revenue issue doesn't become an earnings issue. And that's I think the best way that I can put it, ad libbing here. I just think that you don't have to cancel some of these programs if you look at the expenditures of some of the other things that you're throwing the money at. I think.
All right, we got to switch gears here before we get you out here, JC. We got to do our Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Go visit them at peachlanddental.com. It's the Memorial Jacks tournament up in Ohio. The week before, everybody will be playing. All the big boys are playing in this tournament. I don't think there's a cut in this one. I'll let you pick first. Should I write down Scotty Scheffler?
Do you want me to let you have him this time?
No, I don't want him.
Oh, well, if you don't want him, give
I
him
love
to me.
Scotty, but I'll let you have him.
I'll take him.
All right, Scotty Scheffler. I'm going to go with Vic Hovland.
Yeah, he won it last year. That's going out on a limb there. That's yes, he did. He had a great year last year, Victor Hovland. Then he went and changed his swing and fired his coach. I mean, does it make any sense? Try to help me make it make sense. I'm going to go with, again, another guy that's this is not really going out on a limb, but he's playing fantastic golf, and he had his biggest win of his life just recently, and that's the X-Man. I think the X-Man is right on. This is the kind of course he can really, really survive on. He's so accurate. I like his game.
All right, I'm going to go with the youngster from Texas Tech.
Okay.
Ludwig Ogberg.
Oh, my God, that was who I was going to pick next. He's right under Xander. That's why you did that. Okay, well, then I'm going to go right below that and give me Will Zalatoris, who hits it a mile and is ready to win something. Let me give him my pick.
Zalatoris. Okay.
Yep.
Let me you know who played really well last week? He was in I think top 3. And I'm gonna go with the young buck. One of the youngest on tour, if not the youngest. Ju Young.
Yeah. Did Horschel win this one year?
Yeah, I think a long time ago. So I got Tom Kim.
You got
so JC in the Peachland Dental picks has Scheffler, Xander, Shocker, and Zalatoris, the Demon D.
Listen,
and I go Vic Hovland, Oberg, Tom Kim. Okay, and I got my roster's made up of Big 12 players except for Tom Kim.
It is, although I got a Texas Longhorn on there myself. And watch out for Rory, man. This guy, I'm telling you, that divorce is doing wonders for his game. It is. Yeah. I really believe that.
All right, JC, go work on your NIL for all the young athletes in town.
Forget it.
Maybe you can get some kids from Williston to come play at your alma mater. All right, so all right, we're going to take a timeout. We're going to get to somebody that knows more about the Gators than we do. We're going to have Will Miles, who wrote a magazine about the Mighty Gators.
I'm going to have to watch this.
Yep. All right, that's JC. Join us on the Titan MRI hotline. Take a quick timeout. Come back. We'll be joined by Will Miles. You're watching and listening PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Campus USA, put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union.
Comfort Temp. Comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Dave & Buster's Eat, Drink, Play, Watch. Our Gridiron sponsors are UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, F45, Quality Plumbing. Our touchdown sponsors are Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's next private label whiskey release party is Friday, June 14th. Celebrate National Bourbon Day with us as we launch our new Buffalo Trace Single Barrel Select Bourbon. Mingle at Visor's Rooftop for the release of Spurrier's 4th private label. Enjoy a bourbon-inspired menu, specialty drinks, raffles, and each ticket includes your own Steve Spurrier autographed bottle of Spurrier's Buffalo Trace Bourbon to take home. Go to Spurriers.com to get your ticket today. Must be 21 or older.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Ruse Ogre State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visitogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. We're going to head back to the Titan MR hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp, and we're joined by Will Miles from Read and Reaction, who was a busy man. He was on Paul Feinbaum yesterday. How's it doing? How you going? How's it doing? How you doing, Will? I can't talk this morning.
Doing great. It's been a busy couple of days, but appreciate you having me on and allowing us to talk about our magazine that we're putting out.
Yeah, I was joking with JC, 70 pages of the mighty Gators. That's a lot of material right there. But first of all, before we jump into it, we'll talk about it at the end of too. Let everybody know how they can get the magazine.
Yeah, so you can get it at two places. You can go to readandreaction.com/mag. That's readandreaction.com/mag. Or if you go into Amazon and under books, you just search Gators. It should pop right up. You can buy a hard copy off of Amazon. We also have a digital copy over at the website if you'd rather just get it as a PDF.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. I want to start first. Just your thoughts, because I know you did a lot of deep research into this team. And I know it was a topic on Paul Feinbaum's show, and it's what I've been saying for years. We have stunk playing defense, tackling human beings on the football field the last few years. I'm talking like 3, 4, 5 years. We've been awful. Are we going to be? I think we're going to be much improved with some of the additions they made.
Yeah, I think the transfer portal obviously has changed the way college football teams are designed. And the guys that Billy Napier and his staff have targeted through the transfer portal, the guys like Asa Turner, the guys like DJ Douglas, the guys like Triquez Bridges, who they've all had playing at safety, at least when you look at the spring game. And then Jordan Castell coming into his sophomore season, made some mistakes as a true freshman, no doubt, but really flashed at times as well. And if you look at the SEC over the last 4 or 5 years, defenses that excel at the safety position and the corner position. So Devin Moore's been the best corner that Florida's had when he's been able to stay on the field. Jason Marshall has been about average when you look at Pro Football Focus rankings. So if you get the level of play from those guys they've already put on tape and they can play the whole season, and then you've got all that help on the back end at the safety position, I think the defense can't help but be better, because you're going to limit explosive plays when you do that, when you have good safety play. And Florida actually had a success rate from a success rate perspective was better than they've been the last 3 years. The problem is every time they had an unsuccessful play, it was explosive and it went for a touchdown. And all of a sudden you're down 7-0 against Utah after the first play of the game. They actually played pretty well the rest of that Utah game. The problem is when you're down 7-0 after one play, obviously that puts your offense in a hole, and you get the one turnover for Mertz coming out of the second half, and all of a sudden that game's out of reach.
Yeah. So like you said, I think the addition at the safety position, they got some veterans that they picked up in the portal. You mentioned Devin Moore. I mean, he's an NFL guy. I think Jason Marshall Jr. is an NFL guy too. But for those guys to play well, we've got to rush the passer. We got to get after it. Not so much sacks, but we have to affect the quarterback. And we haven't done that recently. Do you think LJ McCray is the guy that will get that done?
So I think McCray is going to probably be a situational pass rusher. That's what you're looking for from a five-star guy who comes in. You expect him to make an early impact. If you look at LSU a couple of years ago with Harold Perkins, sort of a hybrid linebacker, defensive end type of guy that they used, by the time the end of the season came around, offensive lines and offensive coaches had to game plan for Perkins. If they get that kind of impact out of LJ McCray, you'll be really happy. I think the other thing is you've got Justice Boone coming back, and Boone showed some flashes a couple of years ago. And he's somebody that Florida was really going to rely on last year pretty heavily. And when he went down, there was a significant lack of depth on the defensive line. And then up front, you got Joey Slackman coming in the transfer from Penn. And how that's going to transfer from the Ivy League to the SEC is something everybody's curious about. But he's somebody who dominated at the Ivy League level. And the question is going to be, maybe not even early on, but as he gets sort of his feet wet in the SEC, can he become an impact player up the middle? Because you know better than I do, when the quarterback can't step up, when the defensive line can push back into the quarterback, all of a sudden now it gives the defensive ends an opportunity to get there. That's in most of the time you look at the tape, the turnovers don't always come from a guy coming around the edge. A lot of times they come because the quarterback can't step into the throw, doesn't get it to the receiver, and a corner or safety is able to step in front, take it the other way.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. Yeah, there's nothing worse as a quarterback as pressure in your face in the A and B gaps. When you get a guy rushing hard, or if a guy whiffs on the outside, you can usually feel that guy and you can avoid him stepping up or roll out. But when they come right up in the middle, in your face, that's the worst thing for a quarterback. We have a text on the Titan Mar text line. This is from Jack in Savannah. He says, "Will, do you like our linebackers this year?"
I like him much better than I did last year. I think obviously the health of Shamar James is going to be the critical component. He goes down, injured before the Georgia game, tried to give it a go in the Georgia game and couldn't really do it. And from that point on, Florida's defense just sort of fell off a cliff. Pup Howard coming in as a transfer from South Carolina is a big deal, but also just Derek Wingo played pretty well in spurts last year. But this one all comes down to Shamar James. And then obviously if you get any sort of contribution from guys like Miles Graham and Aaron Childs to sort of bring some depth to that position. I mean, that would be my main concern there, is just there's not an enormous amount of depth, but there is a lot of talent in that room. And if James can stay healthy, I think the linebackers will play pretty well.
Yeah, we need better play out of that position. And I do like those guys, the guys that transferred in. I love Miles Graham. I've said on my show, he's the best high school player I've seen in person since Derrick Henry. I think he's that good of a player. So Greg's question for you on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law. Will, what are your concerns with our line play on both sides of the ball?
Yeah, I mean, I think I already sort of alluded to it, but it's the pressure up the middle. If you look at guys like Caleb Banks and Cameron Jackson last year, they were solid, but they weren't necessarily getting that push up the middle. That's where it starts with the pass rush, but it's also where it starts with the running game, right? If you can prevent that pulling guard from getting around the formation and getting on a linebacker, now the linebacker's freed up to make the play. And especially if you think about the Kentucky game last year, where guys were just untouched before they got to a safety. One of the ways you make sure that a guy isn't untouched before he gets to the safety is getting penetration and creating some havoc and making the running back dodge somebody before he's able to hit the hole. And so, there specifically is where I think Slackman or, guys like Des Watson and Jackson and Banks and Jabari Lyons, those are the guys who are going to have to make some disruptive plays in the backfield, set the offense back to 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13 on a running play rather than 2nd and 6, because it's just so much easier for an offensive coordinator to make a play call on 2nd and 6 and keep the defense on its heels.
No doubt. We talked about the personnel, but from a coaching standpoint, there have been some additions to the staff, especially with Rob Roberts, who's an old guy, been around the league, kind of a mentor that can help on that defense side of the ball. Do you like the coaches that Billy added to the program?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, from a recruiting perspective and also from just an energy perspective, Will Harris really looks to have added something in that defensive backfield. I know everybody was really excited about the original coaches we had there, but, it really looks like Harris is bringing something to the fold. I think Roberts is going to be interesting. I mean, obviously, there's the old adage that when you have two quarterbacks, you don't really have one. And I do wonder about that when it comes to the defensive staff. When you got two defensive coordinators, do you really have someone who's leading that room? That's going to be the challenge, right? Because because I think everybody understands that Austin Armstrong has a lot of potential, but also did not see the results that they wanted to see last year. And he has a reputation for being ultra aggressive. You can see that when you look at his blitz rates. He was up over 30% in his time at Southern Miss and UF. Patrick Toney was the same way. The interesting thing is Ron Roberts, when he was back at Louisiana, ran defenses very similar to Patrick Toney and Austin Armstrong. But then he spent a 3-year sabbatical there at Baylor, and Baylor runs a very different offense or very different defense than Florida does or Ron Roberts did before then. When you look at what happened at Auburn last year with Roberts, he didn't go all the way back to what he had been doing when he was at Louisiana. So I think if you see more middle of the field open coverage, more two deep safeties, less blitzing, keeping things in front of you next year, that'll be sort of the sign that Ron Roberts' influence is starting to take hold a little bit in terms of his and Armstrong's dynamic.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of keeping the ball in front of you because in today's football, it's hard to drive the ball 70 yards without something bad happening, whether it's a holding call or you get a illegal procedure and you're now, you're 1st and 15. Just quit giving up the big plays and you have a chance. Let's switch over to the other side of the ball. I thought offensively, were we as explosive as I think Gator fans want? Probably not, but we were good enough to win a bunch of damn games last year on that side of the ball. Just talk about the addition. Some guys have moved around on the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously that's where it starts for Billy Napier. He wants to be able to run that zone scheme where you're running play action and being able to leak the quarterback out the backside. We saw multiple times last year where Mertz would would have a play action fake, and all of a sudden there was somebody right in his face. The additions of Brendan Crenshaw Dixon and Devon Manuel through the transfer portal, those are 2 tackles. You've got Austin Barber at tackle as well. So now you've got 3 guys who've played real tackle football, have been a tackle and been successful at tackle in real college football. And that allows you to take a guy like Damian George and shift him to the inside. And if you can make George a road grader, all of a sudden you can use the skills that he has maybe a little bit better than you could last year at the tackle position. Obviously, everybody remembers the play where he was getting driven back into Max Brown in the Florida State game. But, consistently, tackle was a position for Florida. So to me, it's not just about George being able to move to the inside. It's that you now have competent tackles, hopefully able to give Graham Mertz a little bit more time so that Florida can go downfield more often.
Yeah. And, a lot of people were upset when ETN left to go to the transfer portal now at Georgia. It didn't bother me one bit. I think he's a really good football player. He struggles in pass protection. I think everybody knows that. But the damn running back room, I think, is loaded.
Yeah, I mean, I think Montrell Johnson, there's not much of a drop off from Trevor Etienne to Montrell Johnson. And I think that was sort of the statement all last year is Etienne is special from his ability to make big plays and make guys miss in the hole. Montrell Johnson, once you get him going, is going to punish the defense. And last year, because the offensive line struggled, you could see that differentiation because Etienne might make the guy miss in the hole and Johnson might get tackled before he could really get going. So if the changes on the offensive line allow Johnson to get going, it's been a while since Florida's had a guy rush for 1,000 yards, but Johnson's one of those guys who you can see maybe stepping into that sort of role. The question is going to be, guys like Kanan Daniels and Jaden Baugh have really sort of blossomed in their senior years in high school, showed some stuff during the spring game as well. And Dan Mullen, Billy Napier has indicated that he is not averse to putting a true freshman back there. He did it with ETN a couple years ago against Utah in the opening game. So I would not be surprised to see a lot of reps for those true freshmen, especially early on, as they try to keep Montrell Johnson fresh.
Yeah, I like him. Tony's question for you on Facebook Live brought to you by Mellon Law. He's not an offensive line guy, but should Barber be at guard or tackle in your opinion?
I mean, I think you put him at tackle. You cross-train everybody, right? You want your 5 best offensive linemen out there. But Barber's played tackle in the SEC successfully now for the last 2 years. Was nicked up a little bit last year, so I think there were some times maybe where you weren't getting the absolute highest level of play. And then the nice part is if he gets nicked up this year, you'll have somebody that you can put in to give him a breather, give him a week off, give him the ability to sort of heal. They didn't have that last year. And I think one of the things that becomes underrated when you talk about an SEC schedule, and this is always the argument I make with my friend friends who have teams in the ACC. It's not the quarterback and the running back you got to worry about in terms of keeping healthy. It's the guys on the interior defensive line and the guys on the offensive line that as they go down, that starts an attrition cycle where you just don't have the ability to do the same things you were doing week 1 or week 2. So I think there's going to be a rotation, obviously, but Barber is a tackle, and I think that's where he's going to stay.
Yeah, I agree. Rhode Island Gator on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, says he just bought the magazine on Amazon. He's looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
And Smoky Gator says, I mean, we're still talking about Damian George. That means it is still trash. Look, I think Damian George, correct me if I'm wrong here, Will. He was highly touted, went to Alabama. Alabama wanted to play guard, but he wanted to be a tackle. So he went to the transfer portal. And obviously, we had some connections to him. So he comes here, we put him at tackle, and he struggles. Well, he's going to guard now, which is his position that he needs to be playing. So he could have a pretty good year. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a different skill set that's necessary on the outside at tackle than on the inside. You need a foot quickness that's necessary in order to make sure that you don't get off balance. And obviously, we saw last year that quickness is not necessarily there with Damian George. But when you switch from tackle to guard, it's just a completely different set of skills that are necessary there. And you can't teach size. You can't teach how big that guy is. And honestly, just getting in the way sometimes is a valuable thing. And I will say that his experience at tackle will help when they want him to pull. So you think about the athleticism that's necessary to be a pulling guard and be an effective pulling guard. Sometimes you'll see a guard sort of trip over one of his other offensive linemen or not able to get all the way around into the hole. George should be able to do those sorts of things because of he's athletic enough to play tackle. He's not athletic enough to be an elite tackle in the SEC. You move him inside, I think all of a sudden some of those shortcomings get hidden, and you're going to be more pleased with his play this year than you were last year, certainly.
Yeah, and they're very excited about Jake Slaughter at center, correct?
They should be. He played really well last year. I mean, Kingsley Eguakun was never really healthy, and Slaughter came in. The Utah game struggled a little bit, but beyond there, I mean, you look at like all of the analytics, and it's hard on the offensive line. But I like Pro Football Focus for that sort of stuff because they have somebody looking at each player on an individual play, grading did they do a good job, did they do a bad job. He was well above average at the center position last year on the Pro Football Focus rankings, which to me suggests that he's doing his job on a regular basis. And you could start to see that as the season progressed. In fact, when they brought Eguakun back in, the offensive line started to struggle a little bit. And then when he went out with another injury, Slaughter came back in and it looked like things started to congeal. So I'm excited to see what Slaughter brings this year.
Is your body hurting? Go to QC Kinetics for long-lasting relief, no surgery, drugs, or downtime. Schedule a free consultation at QC Kinetics. We got Will Miles here on the Titan of our hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp, talking about his magazine read and reaction. All right, let's switch to the dudes that score some touchdowns on the outside. We all know, like, well, before the season started, I saw Trey Wilson, Andy Jean, and Mizell. I was like, these three guys have an opportunity to be like Kwesi and Riedel. I really thought that. Now, they play in a different type of system, but I thought their skill set was very similar to those guys. We saw Trey Wilson. He's phenomenal. Will Andy Jean get playing time? Can he stay healthy? And I think Aiden Mizell can be a guy that can take the top end off of defense.
Yeah, I mean, so I would have said yes, but they keep bringing in these guys through the transfer portal. So they brought in Elijah Badger from Arizona State. They brought in Shamir Dike from Wisconsin. He's obviously got a Graham Mertz connection. And part of that is look, I mean, Billy Napier doesn't have time to wait for guys to develop at this point. It's time to put up some wins there in Gainesville. And so if he thinks he can get marginally better at a certain position by bringing in a senior to take a spot, I think he's going to do that. I think we've seen that both on the offensive line. Those guys are juniors, have 2 years of eligibility, and then DK and Badger have 1 year of eligibility. You're right, though. Mizell has a different skill set than Trey Wilson. Andy Jean has a different skill set than Mizell. And so the fact that those guys should fit together pretty well as an entity is true. Now, what I would say is I don't think people should get all that disappointed in Mizell and Jean last year. In fact, in last year's magazine, I wrote a piece about wide receivers, and freshman wide receivers, like even elite freshman wide receivers, tend to top out about 35, 40 catches. They're usually not the best receiver on the team. If you look at Percy Harvin, he did a lot on the ground, but only caught, I think, like 32 or 33 passes that true freshman season. So we were really treated to an abnormal true freshman season from Trey Wilson, which suggests how special he is. And I think the fact that he was able to jump forward like that is unfair to compare Mizell and Gene to that. So just progression to 25, 30 catches from one of those guys this year would be a huge deal, especially for Mizell because he's a downfield threat. So if he's catching 20 balls, you're probably getting 15, 17 yards per catch. And all of a sudden now he's a big part of the offense.
Yeah, for sure. 31 Ember on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plum, said, is there a book or PDF version of this magazine? Didn't you go over that?
Yep, there's both. So
yeah. Yeah, you can get both 31 Ember if you want. All right, let's talk about the quarterbacks. Obviously, Graham Mertz, when I saw him in the fall, I didn't see him in the spring. I was not here, but I saw him in the fall. I was like, this guy is a legit quarterback. He's a Steve Spurrier type quarterback, in my opinion. Very smart, accurate, knows where to go with the football, and had a tremendous year. I think they need to use him more personally. People talk about us not, I mean, we're very conservative. We need to take more shots. But now you have the DJ Lagway. I've been in a situation where you got these first round quarterbacks. They want to throw them in for a series, maybe the third series of the game. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing. How do you see this playing out?
well, I mean, I think because Lagway is the backup quarterback, they're going to try to get him some time early just because you need to get his feet wet in case something happens to Graham Mertz. Obviously you don't want him getting his first college football throw on the road at Texas or something later on in the season. So they're going to try to find some spots, but obviously there's Samford there's early in the season, there's UCF early in the season. Those are probably the spots where you try to find an opportunity to get him in there. I think Mertz, one of the things that Mertz really brings is a maturity to be able to handle a guy like DJ Lagway coming in. I mean, if you think about the 2006 Gators, where you had to have Chris Leak being mature enough to handle Tim Tebow coming into that fold and having certain a Tebow package and honestly Leak getting booed when he came back on the field when Tebow came off. Those are the kinds of things that you set up when you've got a guy like Lagway in there with everybody really excited about it. But I don't think there's any doubt that Graham Mertz is the starter. I think Billy Napier's made that very clear. And I think Mertz, with a couple of adjustments to what he did last year, is going to be a very, very good player for Florida. The question is, how big of a step can he take? Because I think he overperformed expectations last year, but I also think there are definitely holes that he's going to need to fill in 2024 in order to take the Gators offense to where it needs to be. And the question will be, can he do that, especially with the pressure of having a 5-star kid behind him that everybody wants to see play?
Yeah, I think if they'll let him go play, when I say let him go play, is open it up and let him make decisions. I think they can have a really big year on offense. All right, real quick, a few more minutes with Will Miles here. Special teams. Boy, we had some blunders last year that really cost us. We had a bunch of people here asking questions. Do you think special teams, the issues will be fixed?
This is again sort of like the defensive coordinator. They brought in a new special teams coach, but they've got two guys now who are coaching special teams, and they need to make sure that there's one voice in the room and that they're driving things forward that way. I think the big catastrophe type of stuff is going to be gone. The question to me is going to be, can they fix the little things around the edges that are critical? So Florida last year was dead last in the SEC in starting field position on its offensive drives. And it was by like 2 yards. I mean, they were like starting 77 yards from a touchdown every time they touched the ball, which is hard to do considering that a fair catch puts you at the 25. So just making better decisions in terms of whether you return a kickoff, not getting a holding penalty on the kickoffs, like those are the things that we don't look at and think of as dysfunctional within special teams. Those are the things I'd be looking for if I'm a fan. Are we getting the hold on the punt return where we got a 15-yard punt return? It would have been in enemy territory, but instead now we're starting at our own 27 because there was something way behind the play. The two number 3s on the field obviously get a lot of the attention. The leaping penalty against Kentucky gets a lot of attention. Those are all individual players making mistakes that, and in the number case, the staff making mistakes that are fixable and unlikely to be repeated. The things that can be repeated are the holding penalties and the offsides on fourth and two when you give somebody a first down. Those sorts of things are the things that I hope stop. And honestly, that's why they have a new coach in. So I don't have a ton of confidence. Like, I can't tell you by looking at the profiles of the coaches coming in that they're going to fix it. It's something they're going to have to prove. They're going to have to show the fan base that, hey, we've got this stuff under control, because thus far through 2 years in the Billy Napier era, it has not been under control at all.
Well, a couple of those things are very correctable. When I'm not even one of the coaches and on the air, knowing we have too many dudes or not enough dudes, those things have got to be fixed, and they better be fixed this year. Christopher on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plum, says, ask Will, who will be the most impactful transfer player this year?
I think it's Elijah Badger, and I don't even think it's close. The loss of Ricky Pearsall obviously is a huge deal. Badger allows Trey Wilson to stay in the slot. One of the things you saw in the spring game is Wilson played outside a little bit more than he did during the regular season. But the thing is, they had Wilson in formations last year where he was the running back, and Montrell Johnson was a fullback, essentially as a lead blocker. And when you are able to do that, now all of a sudden you get an opportunity to get Wilson locked up on a linebacker, because the defense doesn't have a nickel in. The defense has got 3 linebackers, and somebody's got to cover Trey Wilson. The only way that works is if Badger is a threat on the outside. So to me, that's the threat. Now, look, it might be Mizell, it might be Gene, it might be somebody else, but if Badger can replicate what he did at Arizona State the last 2 years, that's going to allow them to get a bunch of mismatches with Trey Wilson inside. And Wilson will have a huge year, but Badger will be one of the reasons why he's able to do it.
Bobby on the Titan and Mar text line from Memphis says, Will, give us your prediction of the Gator football record.
So it's interesting. We do a win, loss, or toss feature, and I think we had 2 wins or I had 2 wins and 2 losses, and the rest were all toss-ups. I am finishing 6-6. I don't think that the schedule is the thing that keeps me from thinking that they're going to be 8-4, 9-3. The reality is it's just hard. They got Georgia, then they got Texas, who's essentially coming off of 2 bye weeks because they have Vanderbilt, and then they have a bye week. So that stretch right there, and then you got obviously the Ole Miss and the Florida State coming up after that too. It's rough. Now, early on, they might really be able to get some momentum. That Miami team, I don't think that Ward is really that much of an upgrade compared to Van Dyke. I think obviously UCF has to replace their quarterback, though KJ Jefferson gave Florida nightmares last year, so we'll see what happens there. And Tennessee with Nico there at quarterback, you talk about having a package for DJ Lagway. Well, it's a brand new starter there at Tennessee, and Florida hasn't exactly struggled against the Vols. So there's a world where Florida's already at 6 games before they come into that Georgia game. But obviously, there's also a world where the Kentucky game is really difficult, because it has been for the last 4 or 5 years. So I have them at 6-6, but I think if you asked me, am I leaning more towards more wins or less? I'd say more. I'm more optimistic than that, but the schedule is really tough.
It is. And, I look at the schedule, and there's 2 teams on there that I just think they're better than we are. And that's Georgia and Texas. And I know the back end is very difficult when you got Ole Miss, but I want to see how Ole Miss plays. When you put so many new players together and things, if they just have some issues, how does that locker room turn out? And, if Jackson Dart is injured when he comes to the Swamp, I like our chances. I don't think Florida State, I think they lost way too many good players, and their quarterback to me stinks. So I'm very optimistic. I think we have to start the season 5-0 though. I really do. I wanted to ask you last thing before we get you out of here. This Miami game to me is critical. You have to win this game. Do you agree?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, from an in-state perspective, from a recruiting perspective, and look, Mario Cristobal is not in a much different situation than Billy Napier is in terms of sort of underperforming. They were 7-6 last year in an inferior conference. Cam Ward last year had a QB rating of 145, and Tyler Van Dyke's quarterback rating was 146 last year. So it's not as though you've got a guy who's coming in as like a clear upgrade at quarterback. And like you mentioned, you're expecting a lot out of Graham Mertz. If Florida's offense is dynamic, then this should be a pretty easy win over Miami. Like I think I'm much more bullish on the Gators for this Miami game than I think other people are. And then that really does set you up, obviously, with Texas A&M and a new coach, Mississippi State struggling, UCF with a new quarterback, and then Tennessee, like I mentioned, with a true freshman. There's an opportunity to be going into that Kentucky game 6-0, and if they've done that with road wins against Tennessee and Mississippi State and opening up against Miami, then great. Now the problem is all the noise that pops up if you end up losing to Miami, right? I mean, the noise in the system just gets pretty loud, and considering the record of Florida the last couple of years, in many ways that noise is actually legitimate, and that's where you start getting into, I think, the Mertz Lagway stuff, right? Where Mertz may be playing great, but if Florida's not winning games, people are going to say, well, play for next year. We want to make sure he's ready for next year, that sort of stuff. We saw that back in 2021 with Dan Mullen, where you had Emory Jones in there playing decently, but every time Anthony Richardson came in, it was just an explosive play after explosive play after explosive play. And fans wanted to see Richardson play, and he kept getting held back. And I think in many ways, that frustration is what then led to some of the frustrations with the defense later on in the year, which then led to the firings that came down the road.
Yep, for sure. Well, great stuff as always, my man. Let everybody know one more time how they can get the magazine and how they can follow you on Twitter.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks so much. So you can go to readandreaction.com/mag, or you go to Amazon, just search Gators under the books feature and you'll find it there, or Read and Reaction. You can find it there as well. And you can find me on Twitter at WillMilesSEC, and appreciate you having me on, Shane.
Absolutely. We appreciate your time, my man. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks.
That's Will Miles, who does a tremendous job covering the Gators. Make sure you go get your magazine. You want to appreciate him and JC join us on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Have a great day, folks, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.